Welcome to Relationship Equity, a podcast that explores how successful people cultivate meaningful connections with others in their personal and professional lives. Learn from the stories, insights, and advice of leaders, innovators, and influencers who have built strong bonds with their teams, their customers, their communities, and their families. Here's Richard Walker.
I'm back with Dr. David Choi, a professor at Loyola Marymount University. We've been talking a lot about his remarkable journey from troubled teen to successful academic and entrepreneur. So David, so many of your students that have been through your program have become extremely successful. You are one of the most modest people on earth, but I don't want you to be right now. Why is that? Why have so many of your students gone on to do incredible things?
So I think it starts with Dr. Fred Kiesner, who started the entrepreneurship program in 1972. He built sort of a culture where fact members like him really devote themselves to student success. So he didn't care about anything else, but when he got an email from a former student saying, "Hey, I got a promotion," or "I sold my company for $10 million, whatever," he said, "This is my payday. This is my payday, right? I don't care about my salary. This is what I work toward." And so we maintain that culture at LMU, especially in the entrepreneurship program. And today we have 20 different faculty members teaching 30 courses every semester. But every one of them is so devoted, so dedicated. So we built that culture. And then I think students know that they can approach us anytime, bother us anytime, ask us questions anytime. We have a culture where students support each other. When a student presents her business idea in our incubator showcase, all other students celebrate together.
Wonderful. And I've seen that firsthand, and it's fantastic. The energy is just incredible that you create.
Yeah. So we create that atmosphere and the culture. And so I think that's really adding to our students' achievements.
The entrepreneurship mindset, I think is often misunderstood. People think of entrepreneurs as taking massive risks and creating $10 billion companies. To me, the entrepreneur mindset can be and should be adopted by everybody in business in any role, because to me, it's about what you said. It's about being proactive. It's about thinking forwards, and it's about not being afraid to come up with new ideas and to be resilient. If they fail, if at first you don't succeed, pack it in because you're not very good at what you do. No, that was a joke, that part. But I think that's the biggest misunderstood thing. So let's talk about risk taking for a second. What does risk taking mean to you? Because I think when people think of risk taking, they think of massive risks. What does risk taking mean to you?
No, I think another misconception is that entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial people or people who found companies like to take risk. I think the huge misconception, most entrepreneurs I know hate risk or try to minimize risk, right? Unless you're a poker player or something, a professional
professional poker player.
Yeah, even those guys I know don't like risk. So
right.
I think that's a big misnomer. What we teach at LMU in entrepreneurship is strategies for minimizing risk, right?
Right.
There are some times when you do take risks, but you take minimal risks. So maybe in the old days of entrepreneurship, you bet the farm on something and, maybe you hit it. But today we take more of a scientific approach to entrepreneurship. So, we have an idea, you build something small, build a little prototype to see if you get positive reaction by customers, right? I guess I call it the lean startup method now. But you find a way to spend a little bit of money and time and try something out. And when you become more sure over time of what you're doing, then you put in more time and financial resources so that you don't take unnecessary risks. And then there are also very smart strategies, where you find ways to reduce risk even farther. So there are some times at the end where you have to take certain risks, but I don't believe in taking unnecessary risks.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I think there's this misconception that all successful entrepreneurs are big risk takers. For every risk that pays off, there's probably another 1,000 that didn't pay off.
I mean, I've taken risks. I've taken a second mortgage on my home and to invest in a business and stuff like that. But I knew that the risks are manageable, right? So yeah, so you do take certain risks, but the moment you have money, you pay the mortgage back. So to the outside, it might look like I took certain high risk, but knowing the entire story, I know I took a very small risk.
Well, let's talk about the education system as a whole. You've seen the American education system, that is. You've seen a lot of changes in your tenure. So can you talk about the changes that you've seen? And then I want to talk about, looking into the crystal ball, how you see the changes over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And, I'll give you, not that you need time to think, but I'll put a little bit more on that. It used to be back before, we're old, so, we operated before internet.
Yeah.
And for the youngsters today, it's hard for them to believe a world without the internet and TikTok and then all those other social media platforms. Back in those days, the only way you could really get information was to go to a library and find an encyclopedia. That you want to learn about lions, you got to go to a library to find a book about lions. Well, now any information you want is at your fingertips in less than seconds. That's obviously changed the education world in general. So if you can talk to me about the changes you've seen and how you see the access to information changing the education system going forwards.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary. We thought internet was scary. We thought Wikipedia was scary, but now we've got artificial intelligence, which is way, way, way more scary. I think overall, with AI aside, I think education has gotten better. I think teaching has gotten better. Research has gotten better. So the world of education has gotten better on that front. I think what AI might do, we don't really know yet. I think the biggest problem with education, I think especially higher education, has been the cost of it. Right? I'm sometimes ashamed of being part of the institution that, or
let me tell you, David, you don't need to be ashamed. It's not your fault.
Yeah, I almost get none of the tuition though. But I'm concerned of this incredibly high cost of education, whether it's a private school or even public school. So that's one thing I'm really concerned about.
How do we change that?
What's interesting is Peter Drucker, the big authority in management. I sat in his class in the 90s, and he said there were two major cost diseases in the U.S. One was healthcare, one was college education, and it hasn't changed. Neither have changed since the 90s. And he said these will have to change, and they haven't changed in 30 years. So I think there will have to be innovation. So, for example, I think there will have to be models of higher education where things might look more like maybe a German school or something, where you don't have sports, you don't have extensive college life in cost investments, right? You don't have beautiful, beautiful lawns and buildings, whatever, but you have education. Because most, even private schools, the cost of instruction is at best 40% of the cost of operating a college. So we can come up with some different models. And then I think maybe some universities will just wake up and realize they're wasting a lot of money.
It's a very complex system, and I don't have a solution to it. But there's competition. I mean, your organization, it competes with all the other brilliant universities around you. So I understand. When we came out to California, and Billy's looking at schools in California, he looked at a bunch of different, and we went with him, of course. I was blown away by these facilities. I mean, blown away. Really was. Because they're competing.
Yep.
For students to go to them. And so I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand the need for competition. But things have shifted. Things are changing. And let's face it, the education systems, they're feeders to the business world for these youngsters to go and get jobs. Well, it's changing because I think employees, more and more of the bigger companies now, they're not requiring a 4-year degree for entry-level positions. People can. I know of, and you know of, people that are either at the lower end of the socioeconomic pyramid, either there or, and I think this is something that's changed relatively recently, of people either, call it rebelling, or basically saying the education system isn't for me. I'm going to do it my own way, because there is access to learnings now. There is access for me to self-teach that was never there 10, 20, 30 years ago. So how do you see that changing? Because again, it's a lot of it's down to employers, what employers require to even get an interview. Do you see that changing over the next 10, 20 years?
Oh my God. The thing is, we've been saying that for a couple of decades, and things haven't changed as much as we thought. I think education is a very conservative purchase, right? Parents pay for it for their children, and they're willing to sacrifice, right? And even though the world is changing, the consumers or the customers haven't changed much. But I think it's changed. It has to change. And I think, if you look at an industry where, if you look at most industries, it's like that. Things are changing, and the individual organizations are not willing to change. And I think it has to do with, unfortunately, one of my fun explanations is, it has to do with the fact that the leaders of all these different organizations, whether it's big corporations or universities, are people that are 5 years away from retirement.
Right.
So they're not thinking 30 years ahead.
Right. Right.
So I think that's one of the problems. When I was on the strategic planning committee of my university 10 years ago, whatever, I noticed that nobody was thinking 30 years ahead, because nobody was going to be there 30 years from that time, right? And as a young faculty member, I thought, hey, I want to be there 30 years from now, so I want to make sure the university is alive and well, right? But very few people were thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, I could talk with you for hours, and we're definitely going to connect after this conversation, because I would like to talk to you more about what we're doing, how it might be able to line up with some of the stuff that you're doing. But you've had an incredible impact in so many lives, including our son. There are people that come along in our lives that change them for the better forever. You are one of them for our son, with how you led him and helped get him on a path, and some of the things that you're not just for him, but obviously I know what you did for him because he's my son, but you've done the same thing for thousands of other youngsters, and that's something that you can't put a price on. I'm going to ask you one last question before we finish today. And again, I don't want you to be modest with the answer to this, because you've achieved so many things in your career and in your life. But what's the thing what is the one thing that you're most proud of?
I really, by the way, like the premise of your book. I like the term relationship equity. For me, my students are my assets. The relationship I develop with my students, I think, they're truly valuable. They last forever. I know some of them haven't really expressed their gratitude yet, but the fact is, I wasn't really grateful to my mentors until I was probably like 50 years old. I didn't really know what important roles it played. And I didn't have time and was too busy to thank them, even though I thought about them, But I really, really treasure the relationship I have with my students and former students. Many of them become my drinking buddies. not really.
Some of them were when they were your students, but we shouldn't talk about that. and the parents of the students as well.
Yeah. They become my friends, basically, right? I have more fun with them than with like anybody else, and especially because I teach entrepreneurship. A lot of my students end up being entrepreneurs or startup people, or just dynamic individuals with really, really fun personalities. So I really, really treasure the hundreds of students I'm really, really close to. What I can brag about is lot of people have, let's say, hard time getting hold of my former students. But when I write them an email, they respond within an hour.
No doubt.
So I really, really appreciate them responding to me, and at least some of them appreciating what I've done for them. It's just been. I want to say, I'm doing it for them, but to be honest, like it's just fun, just being nice to them, advising them, helping them find their first internships or whatever it is. And I'm in a position where I can really, really affect somebody's life. Billy obviously came from a good family, but I have students who come from really troubled families with no prospect, good jobs, anything like that. And I can, by giving them an internship after the freshman year, better one after sophomore year, connecting with somebody, the first job, completely change the trajectory of their life.
Well, and not just that, there's a compounding effect there as well, because when you do that for one individual, that then spreads. Because going way back to the beginning of the conversation with that wonderful family that took you in, they helped you. There's so much subliminal things that that come into our minds that we don't even know we're learning at the time, that shapes the course of our lives. And no doubt a large part of who you are as a person is because of, no doubt, your parents, your mother, what she did for you, and the wonderful family that took you in, that changed your life. That now is part of who you are.
I think about the fact, now that I'm, late 50s, I'm thinking about not just the family that took me in, but so many people have had to sacrifice or, give me a chance for me to be where I am, right? So many people. And I now am able to think about it and appreciate it. And there's no such a thing as a self-made person, right? We all got breaks, through wonderful people. And for me to be able to do a few things, give it encouraging words here and there, find an internship for somebody, connect with somebody, connect students with somebody. Those are just things I feel compelled to do, and I really get a good satisfaction from doing it.
And sometimes all it takes is a few encouraging words.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And that's all it takes. A few encouraging words can completely change the way somebody thinks and how they live the rest of their lives.
I'll give you one quick example. So this one young lady was at a lot of trouble in school, and she was in a team in my class project. She was on a team that was treating her badly. And then she came to my class, and I told her, I think you're talented. And then she started crying. I tell you, from that moment, she totally transformed me into a different person.
And that's probably because nobody had ever told her that before.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I think I'm in a position where, if I say something, they might believe it.
Right. And a lot of it is self-belief, David. A lot of it is just self-belief that you are talented and you can achieve things. And sometimes it just needs that one person like yourself to tell somebody that.
Exactly. So we talked about entrepreneurial mindset before, but after being proactive and innovative and resilient, the next thing that has to come with is self-belief, right?
Self-belief.
Confidence. So that in combination becomes really, really powerful. Like you said, no matter what you do, whether you do a startup, whether you work in a corporation, whether you want to improve your family situation, whatever it is, right? Or relationship with your friends, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset with some self-efficacy, you can be very, very powerful.
I'm going to remember that self-belief when I'm on the golf course this afternoon. I'm going to have you in my ears. You can do it. You can make this 20-foot putt. Self-belief, David.
I'm watching this European soccer match. Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the best players. He does it all the time to himself in the game, during the game. I'm great. I'm awesome. I'm great. He just tells himself that even now. So.
Yeah. well, that's a good note to finish on. I can't thank you enough for your time. It's great to reconnect, and hopefully I'll get to see you in person one of these times and make a trip out to California.
Yes. Love to see you again.
Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers, David.
Thank you.
And that's it for another episode of Relationship Equity. Please make sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss any future episodes. Cheers, and I'll see you next time.
This has been Relationship Equity. If you want to take your career, your business, or your personal relationships to the next level, reach out to Richard at yorksolutions.net. You can also get Richard's book, Relationship Equity, your cornerstone investment to great gains in business and life, on Amazon now. Relationship Equity with Richard Walker is a production of Forbes Books.